Hi everyone, welcome. I am Dr. Dilsora Fozilova, and this week we are going to focus on environmental sociology. So the first question we are trying to answer is, why do we study environment in sociology? I'll give you a short answer. So we study environment in sociology because the relationship between humans and natural world is deeply social, shaped by power, culture, inequality, and social institutions. Sociology helps us understand not just the science of environmental change, but the human causes of it, consequences, and meanings behind that. So natural world exists even we don't exist. The oceans, the mountains, and the forests, and the other places. However, though, we create our culture from the natural world. We give names to mountains and we create playgrounds and lakes, for example. We create roads in the middle of forest, or we create all kinds of stuff from the natural world, which becomes our culture. So, so the one of the first reasons why we study environment in sociology is society and environment are interconnected. The environment is not separate from our world, from our social world. It is where we live, where we work, where we build meaning. Sociological studies, or sociology studies how industrialization, urbanization, and consumerism, especially consumerism in our capitalist world, shape ecosystems and how environmental changes in turn affect our lives, social life, migration, and health. The second reason why we study sociology is environmental problems are social problems. When we look at the environment problems, we cannot say this is the problem of the environment. It does not affect us. Issues like climate change and pollution and resource depletion, and these ones are not only ecological, they are rooted in social structures such as capitalism, inequality, and political power. Sociologists examine how some groups benefit from exploiting the environment while others bear the cost. Some political groups, for example, get a big paychecks because of the oil production. However, all the disasters come out of it distributed among society. Another example can be poor people or indigenous communities facing the brunt of environmental harm. The third reason why we study environment is culture and meaning. As I mentioned earlier, people interpret nature, sustainability, and progress through culture and values. Sociology explores how beliefs and religion in media shape environmental awareness and behavior, why some societies prioritize conservation while others emphasize growth. So another reason why we study environment in sociology is power, justice, and inequality in society. Environmental sociology looks at environmental justice, who controls resources, who pollutes, and who suffers. It studies global inequalities in climate policy and corporate influences and grassroots resistance movements fighting for ecological and social survival. So, by studying environment in sociology or studying environment sociologically, we question dominant models of development and explore alternative visions like community-based sustainability or degrowth or ecological citizenship. In short, we study the environment in sociology to understand how human actions reshape nature and how nature in turn shapes our societies and inequalities and futures. So I have a couple of interesting points, facts. I will be asking this in your exam. So maybe it's time to pay attention. So the first one is the environment remembers us. So the facts show, the research shows that some scientists have found traces of human activity even in the Earth's most remote years, from microplastics in Arctic snow to radioactive particles from 20th century nuclear tests. In the tree rings, that when you cut the tree, you can see these rings. So they could see the traces of these destructions in the tree rings and ice cores. In other words, the planet itself keeps the record of our behavior, a social history written in nature. So the question I'm going to ask you is, if the earth tells our story, what kind of story are we writing right now while we are living our lives? And here we are in BC, and what kind of practices or what kind of relationship we are going in with environment, and what kind of story do you think the earth or nature is telling about us? So that's the first question. The second one is, the information is, the research facts show that pollution is not distributed equally, and we talk about that very often. Poor and racialized communities are far more close to live near to landfills and highways and toxic factories. For example, some of the manufacturing companies located in the borders of Mexico, that's US factories, you can see the people who work in these factories move close to them, and the environment they are living in is not clean or friendly. There is a lot of toxic materials around, a lot of pollution there. So environmental problems are not just ecological. They are also questions of social justice and inequality. So the question is, why do some people get to live in clean environments, in a great places with a lot of trees and greens and water where we can, get clean oxygen and clean water, while others don't? What does that say about power and privilege? So this is a short video. So as we've seen, that studying the environment in sociology isn't just about trees, air, or climate. It's about people, power, and inequality. The environment carries our social footprint. Scientists have even found the traces of human activity, from the plastics to pollution in the most remote corners of Earth. So I'll see you in our next video, and remember these questions.